We are the Football Lounge with Mark
and 2 for Fantasy.
Every week I press go live and then I start the commercial, and there's always a delay. So this week I start the commercial, then click go live, and it takes forever to go live. So can't win for losing. So welcome into Watching the W. We are back this week. We are off a day. I had to do some responsibilities for the wife because it is her birthday tomorrow. So we went out of town yesterday. But we are here and we are ready to talk about some games in the W. So, first off, let's hit on the Commissioner's Cup update real quick. Those things have finally all been sorted out. That game, the title game, will take place next Wednesday. It will be the Lynx at the Liberty, and then I found out this morning because they are actually doing the men's NBA draft, the MNBA draft at the Barclays Center next Thursday. That they're actually moving the location. So they're not going to play in the Liberty's home stadium. They're actually playing somewhere else. I think at the Oilers' home stadium. If I read that right.
Yeah, it's in UBS. Out in Long Island.
Yeah, so that is where that game is going to take place at. So kind of neutral court, but not really. Still in New York, so the Liberty you would think would have the home court advantage. There.
We don't count it as New York, but yeah.
Yeah, so that's the update for that. Pretty competitive series of games. I kind of like it in that it's kind of condensed. It's all there, but I wish there was more kind of fanfare to it. Other than it just seems to be a 2-week block of games, and then if you just win your 5 games, or you're kind of advanced into this other random game. I wish there was a little bit more. I don't know, maybe bracketing to it or something. But other than that, I thought it was an okay experience for my first go around. All right, so. Danny, you wanted to talk, I guess, last week here. The great Gino Auriemma had some things to say about, as everybody does, he had some things to say about Caitlin Clark in her first month here in the W. And you sent that to me, so I will let you take the lead on that.
Yeah, I think he's spot on. I mean, we've discussed it at length, but it's also, not even, people who aren't as esteemed in women's basketball as Gino is. And he's even saying it. And you could tell by the way he's saying it, like, he's not saying it as because she went first in our team, like, because he's had a history of top picks, top players. And a lot of the UConn players can transition better because of the way they play. But like he said, she was set up for failure. They set her out. We see it in the NBA when you see those guys that they score like 30 points a game. They're the only player on the team that scores in college. And then they get to the NBA and it's like, oh crap, I got to actually play. And you have to work in a team. But I mean, he's right. She was set up for failure. I'm looking at his comment now, where she's handling it great, but she talks a lot of shit, but she can't handle when the shit's coming back. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing it we saw it yesterday. I thought it was a great moment where it was her versus Angel Reese. And we can argue for days on whether that was a flagrant or not. It wasn't. But like, Chicago seems to be the only team that's just going, hey, we're going to let you know, even though you're the number 1 pick, you're the star child of the W, we're not going to make this easy on you. And let's be real, arguably that was probably her best game yesterday, like overall. Like I think I saw halftime she had 5 assists, 1 turnover. That's the first time she's had less than 3 turnovers without leaving a game with an injury.
Yeah, I didn't see yesterday's game. I did see, obviously, the play has been all over social media. My take on it is it was completely a basketball play. She was going for the block, and she happened to clip her in the head. So by rule, that is a flagrant foul. So I'm okay with them calling it a flagrant. if this was my comment to that would be, if this was the exact same play with Asia and Sabrina, nobody would be talking about it.
No.
Because it was an incidental contact in my mind. She swiped at the ball, or clipped the ball and clipped her head at the same time. Yes, you can call it flagrant because it was to the head, but other than that,
it reminded me of like in the NFL when you see the plays where like the players like going for the quarterback and he's already too far down by the time the quarterback has started to slide. And They have to give the roughing the passer call, even though everyone knows it really wasn't a roughing passer call. It just missed by like half a second.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is. And I mean, I've gotten to the point, like I'm so tired of, and I know it's bad for me to actually listen to Barstool Sports for once. But like I've gotten to the point where like, it's like every media outlet has just gotten to the point now of, if we defend Caitlyn, all the people that kind of follow us that are casuals in just about every sport but one that don't know anything about the WNBA are going to defend it. Like I saw like Dave Portnoy and them posting like she needs to be suspended for that hit. That wasn't a dirty hit. Like I've seen NBA players take harder hits and not get a suspension. So like I've seen hockey players take less and not get suspensions. So like I think a lot of people are getting to the point of they're kind of sick of hearing Caitlin Clark's doing this, Caitlin Clark's doing this, when she hasn't been putting up the numbers to be getting this kind of media attention.
No, I try and compare her to Wemby, and Wemby kind of had the same thing where he kind of had that slow start, and then by the end of the season, he really kind of had it really kind of going on. She's been kind of on that same trajectory of this first month's really been her getting her feet wet and figuring things out, and then here in the last few games, and they're on a 2-game winning streak. Here in the last couple of games, they're really kind of clicking, and part of that too, we talked about this last week or the week before. It boils down to they got some practice time in. They got 4 days off, and they got some practice time, and they got a chance to kind of gel a little bit, install some sets, and they look more like a professional basketball team now. So big surprise what a little practice will do for it. So
yeah, like I didn't get to watch the first half of that game because I was out of the house, but then I saw like this. I was like, oh, let me check the score at halftime because this seems like a really close game. Like, what am I missing? So I'm kind of caught up. And I mean, I'll just pull this up right now. I mean, you had Boston at 19-14. That was probably her best performance all year. Caitlin had 23, 8, and 9 with only 5 turnovers, and she still had 2 blocks and shot 63% from the floor, which we talked about before. The worst thing for her is that she is not shooting good inside the 3-point line. She was 4 for 4 inside the arc, which really kind of says she was 3 for 7 from 3. Nalissa Smith, 15 and 7. Mitchell with 17 and 4. Like that was probably their best team performance. And I think they could turn a corner. I'm not saying they're gonna make like headlines and start making a run for the finals, but if we can see her kind of play more team basketball and not this like it almost like 2K My Career, you shoot the ball from 40 feet because why not? It's your video game type play. Then like I mean they'll be great next year. I think if they keep playing like this.
Yeah, they're tracking on the right path. Like you said, 2-game winning streak and looking a whole lot better. So yeah, I think it's just time and getting things under their belt. And then we get the break here mid-July for the Olympics, and that'll give them again more time to practice and figure things out. So yeah, I think that's going to be good for them. Speaking of 2-game winning streaks, Danny, the Mystics finally won a game. They won 2. It was great. They're taking the league by storm now. The problem was they got Brittany Sykes back for those 2 games, and then she got hurt again. So
yeah. I just want to point out the genius who called it on air and said they're going to beat the dream. Now I feel like I know things.
Yes.
Is this what DJ thinks he feels like all the time?
Yes. This is when he becomes obnoxious. So yes, feel free to be, I'm used to it. So feel free to be obnoxious. Yeah, so they played 2 games. They look really good. They look probably about as good as they've looked. I mean, to me, they've been in every game all season. They've been fighting really hard, but they finally kind of put it together in the fourth quarter. They didn't let things slip away, and then they finally pulled out a couple of W's. So that's always nice to see that for them. So hopefully they're going to play a little bit better. And when the bottom half of the league is competitive too, that always makes for fun games. Speaking of that, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the standings, just so that we can check that box off, since we do that every week. So as of today, there is one game tonight, but as of today, your Sun are at the top spot. Liberty are a half game behind them. Lynx behind them. Then Storm, Mercury, and the Aces and the Dream are at 500. That's kind of the top half. And then the Fever, Sky, Sparks, Wings, and Mystics are in the bottom half of the league. The obvious big question mark there is the Aces. Danny, is it too early to start panicking for that?
I think I wouldn't say panicking, but this feels like since Becky Hammond took over, seems like the first time they've had to face any kind of adversity. Like, just in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm looking at their schedule. Their next couple of games, is going to be a big test for them, because their next 2 games is Seattle and Connecticut on the road at home. So if they can't split those 2, then I say you got to start looking at what the problem is. Because rounding out the rest of the month, they have Chicago, Indiana, and Washington. For after Connecticut and Seattle, they have a 6-game span where they don't play anyone with a winning record. Where they face Washington twice, they face Indiana, they face Chicago and Dallas and LA. So if they can't get to July 10th when they play Seattle and they're not, I'll give them 3 games above 500, I think you start to worry. I think they've kind of coasted. It just reminds me of that, we see it more in I think college, where it's the team that's we've dominated for 3 years in a row, so we don't really have to try because we know we can turn it on in the playoffs and it's good. And then now everyone else around them is getting better. And it's oh shit, what do we do?
Yeah. Now, Chelsea Gray is due back. She's back on the active roster. People kept talking this weekend that she was going to play this weekend. She was not. She did not play this weekend, but she is very close to coming back. So I think that is where you'll see them kind of make that big push. Now, she's obviously been on the bench for every single game and communicating, but that's different than being on the floor. Just missing that, your floor general out there it makes it tough for everybody. So I think when she comes back, I think you'll see them kind of shift a gear a little bit as well. But that's been kind of the missing component. Now, that said, waiting for your point guard to come back can be problematic. Speaking as a Bulls fan, waiting for Lonzo Ball for the last, I don't know, God, how many years. At some point, though, you have to address the elephant in the room that your point guard isn't on the floor. Now, they've done a pretty good job with that. Jackie Young has been outstanding. Kelsey Plum does a really great job when she has to take over. But you're still missing your superstar, your all-star, your Olympian point guard. That it's just a completely different ballgame at that point. So once she's back on the floor, I think we'll see them kind of shift gears. But there may be other problems that she's. I think what we see now is she forgave a lot of sins, and we're seeing some of those sins come to light. And then when she gets back on the floor, I think some of those things go away. So hopefully that is the case for them, because I do like. They're a fun team to watch on the floor. They're a fun team to talk to. off the court as well. So I like to see them do well, just because I want to see as many games of them as possible. So I don't want to see them get bounced early in the playoffs. I want to see them go far and play well and have that dramatic Final Four of the Sun and the Lynx and the Liberty and the Aces, and have kind of all that drama that goes with kind of those four teams. That to me would be the most exciting thing at the end of the season. But that's just me being selfish. But I would think that would bring the best ratings in my mind.
Yeah, and I mean the big thing I want to see is how Kelsey Plum's gonna adjust when she's back, because she is just not impressed me this year. I mean, she had a great game against the Liberty. I think that was probably her best game this season, but her shot has just been so inefficient. Like, I mean, you look at outside of that Liberty game when they had Phoenix, they had their Commissioner's Cup game against Minnesota, LA, and Seattle. She only had one game where she shot above 36% from three. She had like 3 for 11, 4 for 11. She's shooting tour dates right now. 2 for 8, 3-12, 3-10, 3-7. Like, it's like, I get it. She's a shooter. She's the one you pay to, make those shots. But if the shot's not falling, at what point do you start putting her in a more facilitating role? Do you start putting her in more of a passive role and like just be more patient with the shots?
Yeah. You have to kind of make that call as well. We'll see. Like we said, with Gray coming back, that does forgive some sins. So hopefully that makes them a little better. I did put out a article this last week about New York is probably the team that most ready to kind of knock them off in my mind. And we know that New York is a very good team. Obviously, the Sun have only lost once. They're quite good as well. So we'll see kind of how things kind of shake out as things move along here. But there's clearly kind of 3 tiers in this league now. Like I said, there's kind of those top 3 right as of today of the Sun, the Lynx, and the Liberty. Then there's kind of that middle tier, and then there's kind of that bottom, tier with the Fever and the Sky and the Mystics, and then everybody else is kind of in between. So.
To be fair with the Sun, I think they're gonna drop out of the 1 spot like late in the season. But like I'm looking at their first month and a half. They've only played 3 games against teams above 500. Like excluding Indiana at that 8 spot, which I kind of try to exclude them from stats just because they've played like 6 more games than every other team. With all their nationally televised games and everything. But like they've played Washington twice, they've played Indiana 3 times, Chicago twice. They've only played Minnesota, Phoenix, and New York once, and then the rest of it has just been Dallas, Indiana, and Washington constantly. So yeah, they're great, but they're 2-1 against teams above, or 3-1 if you count Atlanta there against teams above 500. But like other than that, they've just been playing these really bad teams, and a lot of these games that they should be winning by double digits, they're only winning by 3 or 4. So they're gonna hit a streak in the middle in July for a 10-day stretch where they got to play Phoenix, Minnesota, New York twice, Phoenix twice, and then they finish the season with LA, Minnesota, Chicago. They're gonna hit a slump. And it's going to be against these really good teams. And I think they could drop down to a 2, if not a 3.
Mm-hmm. However, if they go through that gauntlet, they win, say, 67% of those, 2/3 of those games, then you've got to think that they are legit.
If they can stay number 1 through that stretch at the end, then I'm putting them versus the Liberty as the final. Or at least one of them 2 in the finals.
Right. Yeah, like I said, that Final Four ought to be fairly interesting, I think, just kind of based upon what we've seen so far this year.
Yeah.
All right. All-Star voting is open. It opened earlier this week. I have not cast my vote yet. the format this year is going to be the Olympic team, so Team USA versus kind of the rest of the W. I kind of like that format because that way you've got the Olympic team who's kind of already used to playing with each other, so that gives you kind of, a little bit of advantage there. I did see somebody who said earlier that they're like, so how are we supposed to vote for this? Because we know the Olympic team's already going to be on the All-Star roster. Should we just not bother voting for them and vote for kind of the next 12 best? So I thought that was kind of an interesting question to pose.
My guess would be it just have to be like the top 24. But I think if they do something like that, then they need to almost and this is like one of their biggest years they've had. So obviously like this would be something in the future. But if they're going to do that, they should have that as like a game like the Saturday before. Like, you know how they always do like the Team USA versus Team International for the NBA or the rookies and sophomores. Like do that. This is our Olympic roster. These are the 12 best players in their first 2 seasons. Like the rising stars versus Olympic stars. And then you could do an actual all-star game after. Like, I think that would be something that would be fun to see. Because then, but either way, I like this because now you're going to have more talk around the league because, let's say Agambawale goes absolutely off in the all-star game and someone else struggles and they're going to be like, oh, should they have put her in? Should Caitlin Clark goes off, everyone's going to, oh, this is what happens. You're not going to put her on the roster, and this is what happens, stuff like. So I think it's going to bring more intrigue into the league. It's going to ask more questions, and it's going to get more stuff out for the media. So I think this is a great idea.
Yes. Yeah, I like it as well. I think it would be an interesting watch. Speaking of Arike, just because you touched on her name, she did mention that she pulled herself out of the Olympic pool because she said it was getting to be too political. Which I get. If you hear the whole quote, she basically says it's not necessarily the 12 best players; it's the 12 best players that kind of work together the best, and which is the point that you made when we were talking about Caitlin Clark last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever it was. And evidently, Arike didn't feel like her skill set as a scorer kind of fit in with those, and so she said, "Hey, look, we know that you're probably not going to take me anyway, so I'm just going to save myself the heartbreak and making my decision and withdraw." I get where she's coming from. I would like to see her just because they also have like alternates and stuff. I would have liked to seen her keep her name in the pool and be like the first or second alternate to go in case that somebody's hurt. Because right now I think it's Brianna Thomas from the Sun or Brianna Jones. There's too many Briannas. But the one from the Sun, she is the one who's the first alternate if somebody gets hurt or can't go. So I would have liked to be Arike, kind of deserved that to be kind of the next person up. But what's kind of your thought on her comments?
I think she's right. I mean, if you followed the Olympic not even the Olympic, like the FIBA roster over the last 4 years, when they're doing these FIBA tournaments that are during the NBA season and during the summer, they're not taking a break to put LeBron and Kevin Durant on the same team. No, they build a team around international players, but it's not just, oh, here's our 14, 15 best players that play overseas. It's here's the 14, 15 that best fit what the coach wants. And that's honestly how they need to build the roster. I mean, when you're in the NBA and you have 30 players to choose from that are Hall of Famers and at any point could shut down 95% of the world, like you obviously can just be like, oh yeah, we'll just take him. We'll take him. We don't need this guy because we have 4 more other people that could do it. But as women's basketball is getting better and better and more international, you're seeing a lot more teams where it's, hey, yeah, we could send 12 players out and beat everyone by 100, but everyone's getting good. So what happens if we put 12 offensive players and no one plays defense? So you got to start building a roster around what the team needs, what the coach wants, and how they want to identify as they go into the Olympics.
Exactly. And they have a long winning streak as well. You don't want you don't want to be the team that loses as that one men's team from 90 or 2000.
2004.
Or yeah, you don't want to be those guys. So you want to make sure that you can carry that.
It's the same as any other roster. Like, you don't just say, "Oh, here's our." It's not an all-star game. It's not here's our 13 best players. It's here's what fits us the best.
Right, and even all-star games, it's not the 13 best players; it's the 13 most popular players.
Exactly,
because the fans vote on that.
I mean, we're in Euros for soccer. There's players that are getting like put as alternates that everyone's like, oh, but they play for, Barcelona, they play for Man United, but they're not needed right now. That's why they're an alternate. And that's where you need a Gumbawale as an alternate in case, let's say someone goes down with an injury, they got to withdraw. Okay, cool. We need a shooter. Okay, cool. We have her that we could put in. Like, right. That's the whole point of having the alternates, is to have the player. And she was right for saying, the way y'all have built this team, I'm not going to get playing time. I do not fit in with what's going to go on, and it might be worse for my career. So I'm going to step away.
Yeah. No, like I said, I understand her decision. Selfishly, I would like to see her as part of that group. But I get where she's coming from. All right. So let's take a look at some of the big performances that have happened here in the last couple of weeks. We touched on Caitlin Clark's big game yesterday, probably her best game of the year. Wednesday, Angel Reese had a career-high 20 points against the Sun. Yesterday, it brought her to 6 consecutive double-doubles, which I think is getting close to a rookie record. I think 7 or 8 is the record, so I think she's closing in on that. And Camila Cardoso picked up her first career double-double yesterday, becoming the first set of rookie teammates to have a double-double this season.
And not to mention, Angel Reese is 8 of her last 9 with 10+ rebounds too, yes. And 7 of her last 9 with a double-double. Like, she's absolutely been crashing the board. If she could get those shot numbers better, like I think if she shot more efficiently, she would 100% be rookie of the year, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and I'm not even just saying that as an LSU fan.
And I'm not saying that as a Sky fan. I completely agree with you. She is leading the whole league in offensive rebound, not just rookies, the entire league. She is leading the whole league in offensive rebounding as well. So, and having Cardoso on the floor is only going to help that. Might bring those numbers down a little bit, but just the fact that there's 2 of them there.
Oh, yeah. And with everyone focused on Caitlin Clark, I feel like everyone forgot. Boston dropped 19 and 14 yesterday. Yeah. Pretty quietly, too, because they didn't even mention it on the broadcast.
Yeah. Boston's played much better here in the last couple of weeks. I think they've finally kind of figured out that pick and roll situation with her and Clark, and I think that's going to be that should be their bread and butter. That should be option A every time down the floor, in my mind. Just kick it into Boston, see what she sees. If she's got a quick and easy one, take that. If not, kick it back out, look for a 3. To me, that should be the way the whole thing works every single time down the floor. But what do I know? Other rookie double-doubles experiences. Rickea Jackson, we don't talk about her. We sure as hell don't talk about her enough. She had a double-double Friday with career highs in points at 19, rebounds at 10, and she also threw in 3 assists, which is also her career high for good measure. Cameron Briggs cooled off a little bit here in the last week or so. I think I saw she had a game last week where she didn't score at all. But Rickea has been playing very well. She got inserted into the starting lineup when somebody got hurt. She basically hasn't given that spot back. So she's been playing very, very well. Speaking of people we don't talk about enough, damn it, Jerica Hamby has been killing it as well. She's probably in that second tier of MVP voting in my mind. Like, you have your Asias, your Stewies, your Nafisas, and then I'd say that next tier behind them is Jerica Hamby. She's been killing it out there. She's been playing really well. They gave her a contract extension, I think a 2-year, 3-year contract extension here this last week. Totally well deserved. So great to see her. And like I said, somebody we do not talk about enough on this show. Speaking of other big veteran performances, A'ja Wilson was out doing A'ja Wilson type things. She is now 17 games of 20-plus points or more, most in WNBA history. No surprise there. And then she also had a streak of like 20-15 or 20-10. I think that got snapped. But she's just been killing it. In my mind, she's your leader in the MVP voting, at least at this stage.
Yeah.
Teammate Jackie Young had go ahead.
I was gonna say MVP unless they can get higher in the standings, I'm giving it to Collier, but it's gonna make it a hard choice.
Yeah. Her teammate Jackie Young had a career high 34. What night was that? Thursday. Yeah, Thursday against the Mercury in the win. And then Asia had like 30 something that night as well. I think they combined for like 64, 65, something stupid high. And then speaking of Napheesa Collier, she had a team record 8 steals Friday night against the Sparks. So that was kind of a crazy thing. I guess like the NBA record is like 10 steals in a game, and she had her 8 like halfway through the third or early in the fourth or something. Everybody's like, is she gonna break that? She didn't break that, but that was still kind of crazy to see. So always fun to see kind of those stats, those records get challenged and broken. So that was some of your big performances of this week. Danny, anything else that we missed that we want to talk about before we roll out of here?
Nothing else really. I mean, I feel like with it being as much as the WNBA has big markets and small markets, I feel like every team that is not right now Indiana, Las Vegas, or New York are you can kind of consider them a small market team. But if with all the attention on Asia, like Napheesa Collier has had such a great season. I just wanted to point that out again, that like the way she's been playing this year and quietly going and getting an 8 steal game, averaging what she's averaging and putting up MVP level numbers on a team that no one was expecting to lead the Western side of the league. Like I think people need to put a little more kind of credit and respect on her name.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. She is currently 4th in points per game. She is 3rd in rebounds per game. She is 2nd in steals per game. That 8 steals will definitely help you there. And if you are a fantasy player, she is 2nd in fantasy points per game at 44.7. Almost a full 6 points behind Asia, who's scoring 51 fantasy points per game, 51.0 fantasy points per game, which is just stupid.
Yeah, she's the Christian McCaffrey of fantasy, just because she consistently is getting those triple doubles and those like 8 rebound assist games.
It's just dumb.
Yeah.
With that. But taking a quick look here at other folks who are scoring. Jewell Loyd, speaking of people we don't talk about enough, Jewell Loyd is playing really well. She's scoring almost 20 points a game. She's 5th in the league in scoring. We don't talk about. I don't see the Storm very much because they usually play those late night West Coast games, so I don't get to see them a ton. But her and Skylar Diggins-Smith are people who we don't talk about enough, but obviously are having very good seasons and will be all-stars when that time comes.
I just feel like that Seattle team is like one bad like 3-game stretch away from dropping out. And like it's kind of like when I've watched them, nothing's really impressed me and nothing's really like concerned me, but I feel like the best way I could explain it, because I'd explained to my buddy the other day, it's a baseball fan, is they're the Cincinnati Reds, where it's like they could go on a run and prove that they're one of the best teams, or they could just start going like having a terrible stretch and drop down to the bottom. Yeah. And that's the thing with the Western side of the league is like all those teams are like neck and neck. So like one bad run can drop you from like a 3 or a 4 down to an 8 really fast.
Exactly. Yeah, Seattle right now, as of today, is in 4th place in the league, 9-5 overall. But the Mercury's right behind them at 7-7. Atlanta is 6-6. Well, they're probably an Eastern team. Sparks are 4-10, and then the Wings are 3-9. So yeah. So
and again with that, it's the same thing as Connecticut because if you look at their 5 losses, they've lost to Minnesota 3 times. They've lost to New York and they lost to Phoenix. They've played Washington a bunch. They've played Indy a bunch. Their one really impressive win was that back-to-back against Phoenix and Vegas that they won both of them by double digits. So that was, and Jewel Lloyd dropping 25 in that second one. But like I said, like they just keep getting stomped by these teams that are above them. Like they lost by 13. Their closest loss this season has been by 9, and that was in double overtime. Every other one other than that has been double digits. So when the shot's not there, they're getting smoked.
Yeah, they're missing some pieces too. But you got to play with what you've got. Of course, we can say the same thing about the Aces during that segment as well. So lots of great interest and intrigue. A lot of good, really good basketball happening on the court as well. So if you are out there watching, make sure that you catch some games and that they're always competitive. If you're kind of a first timer, don't just watch just your favorite team. Pop in on a couple of these different games. Pop in on the Thursday night Amazon Prime game or those Ion games on Friday. Those always seem to be really competitive. So make sure that you're catching, a good variety of leagues. There's a lot of good basketball being played. And obviously, once the men's NBA finals are done here, probably this week, then you're going to be looking for a fix anyway. The WNBA is a very, very good product that you should be watching. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably already watching it. But worth repeating. All right. Anything else before we go?
No, that's really it. I don't think I have anything else so far with the league. I just wish they wouldn't schedule games so far away from each other.
I wish they wouldn't schedule like 3 games all starting within 30 minutes of each other.
Yeah, that's it. But it's just like we had yesterday where every game is like great. Like they're close. It's fun to watch. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait for that tomorrow. And then I look and it's just one game. And then I look and then I was like, oh, I really want to see Chicago play again. Oh, their next game's not for 4 days. Like, I get it. No, I don't care about the whole back-to-back. Like, you don't have to do back-to-backs, but at the very least, I was thinking about the other day, they could do what the MLS does, where the MLS plays on Wednesdays and Saturdays. You could do every Tuesday night, every Friday, and every Sunday. Mm-hmm. Something like that, and you could get 3 games in, and then at least that way you could promote it more instead of oh, when's their next game? 5 days from now.
Yeah. I would like a little bit more consistency to it. Personally, just to makes plotting things that the rest of life kind of out easier as well. I would like a little bit more kind of consistency, and like I said, just more spacing in the games as well. Just because it's hard to have a game at 6:30, a game at 6 Central, 6:30 Central, and then 8. Then you're kind of staggering and trying to decide which ones you do and don't want to watch. So it's just staggering them a little better would be nice, but that's a minor soapbox issue as well. All right, that will do it for us this week. We are part of the For Frequency's Sake Network, which is presented by Durham Remodeling, Ryan Allison Tattoo, and Jared Zuck Country Financial. One of these weeks I will get that at the top, but this was not that week. Other than that, we will see everybody next week. We should be back on our regular Sunday rotation next week. Until then, have a good week, watch some games, and we will see y'all later. Bye-bye.